For the third year running, we must appeal to our legislators to work on the Petroleum Industry Bill and bring it to a positive conclusion. This bill contains provisions to redefine and change the oil and gas sector, and in line with the philosophy of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, to turn the NNPC into a private commercial enterprise, and so cease to be a wholly owned government entity. This will make the corporation and the oil industry more transparent and accountable to all Nigerians. Once again, we call upon the National Assembly not to fail the people that they represent by asking them to have the courage and tenacity to pass this long overdue bill. I will be remiss if we do not bring to the fore the misery which the ongoing insurgency by the Boko Haram sect and indeed other militants are causing our nation. The price we have paid is much too high. As we speak, we're not sure we have the solution. But this is a national problem for which we all have a collective responsibility to resolve, failure of which we'll all pay for dearly. Look at what it has cost us with our children who have lost their lives trying to go to school. Just as bad is the menace of the militants who proceed to blow up and damage our oil and gas pipelines. They are all retardants of economic progress. The Minister of Power and his team are currently fighting a near-losing battle to secure the supply of an adequate quantity of gas to meet our power needs. And as we look to foreign investors and partnerships, we must appreciate the impact which a perceived weak security situation presents to the outside world. It not only discourages inward flow of investments, it also challenges the physical presence of those who can help to build our nation and frightens investors away as they perceive an unstable and sustainable economy. Perhaps the most important of all the areas in need of urgent reform is our capacity to create the human capital we need for our national development. A recent survey on education and employability estimates that 24 million jobs are needed over the next 10 years to reduce the current unemployment level by half. That is why you would have over 100,000 people applying for just 3,000 jobs, with some of them losing their lives in the process. In addition to the deficit in jobs created relative to new entrants, the quality of labor poses a major challenge. While improvements in the business and economic environment will go a long way towards recreating jobs, the new challenge we face will then be whether there are enough suitably skilled Nigerians to take up the jobs being created. We at the Nigeria Economic Summit Group believe it is time to undertake a fundamental review of our education system and sector. That, Mr. Vice President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is why we are here today. Our institutions at all levels are producing graduates not fit for purpose. In other words, our children are leaving school without the skills required to sustain them or contribute to the growth and development of the national economy. The challenge of inadequate human capital is becoming the biggest challenge of all. We must face our education system with passion and vigor, and do so as a collective objective between the public and the private sectors. Each cannot do it adequately alone. This summit on education will achieve three things. The first is to draw everyone's attention to the fact that we do have a problem and to understand the nature of that problem. The second is to consider our capacity and ability to effect the necessary changes based on the magnitude of what needs to be done. And the third is to devise a structure that will ensure sustainability of an improving educational system. So this summit has been structured to follow a value chain, so to speak, of any sound educational system, starting with a vision and philosophy, which we want the Vice President to share with the country at the opening presidential dialogue. Thereafter, we will spend time reviewing the various elements of technology, funding, access, curriculum, and vocational training. And within the context of these, we will discuss and recommend solutions for early years of education, primary, secondary, tertiary, issues about employability, teacher education, education management and accountability. And on the last day, we will be engaging state governors to competitively share with the nation their strategy and achievement in education. I cannot think of any other subject that will capture the concern and interest of Nigerians more than this issue, and dare I say, even beyond the ongoing national conference. The challenge before us is tough, but it's not impossible. It's difficult, but it's not hopeless. Education is everyone's business and must not be left to any one stakeholder group to define and deliver without real accountability, without feedback, and a system that enables continuous improvement. I therefore call upon parents, teachers, education ministers, and policymakers, education professionals and practitioners, employers, community, civic, and religious leaders, consumers, consumer groups, professional associations, professional coaches and trainers, everyone to participate in this change. See, the change we seek may require us to think differently about the purpose of education and how the burden of responsibility for educating the Nigerian people at all levels is shared and what form it will take. As I bring my remarks to a close, it will be remiss if I do not touch on some aspects about the future of our economy going forward. We as a country are not doing enough to stamp out corruption, and we're not pursuing and punishing those engaged in corrupt practices. We agree with the school of thought that places more emphasis on building institutions, building systems and processes which provide a more enduring and sustainable war against corruption. But we need to have a much more collective and uncompromising approach to dealing with corruption. We need, Mr. President, to come down much harder on culprits and to stamp out the level of impunity that exists. And we must be able to rely on the power of the rule of law. Maintaining our economic stability will not be easy in any election year, and the ability to meet our budgeted revenue targets could be tough based on our past and current level of production. Our budget for discretionary spending seems to be high. We do have increasing domestic debt, and the attendant cost of financing such debts eventually puts pressure on interest rates. These are all pressure points against effective economic governance. We all have to pay attention to the impact of the ongoing and fast-rising political tempo in the country, and ensure that the approaching general elections do not destabilize the economy, and ensure that the political maneuvering that is going on all sides do not create risks which are inimical to our economic progress. We ask all the major players to be careful. There is great pressure on our socio-economic and political system. They must all put the country's interests first. The Nigeria Economic Summit Group is not a partisan organization. We focus on the formulation of national policy to create opportunities to improve the quality of life of every individual. Over the past 21 years, we have focused relentlessly through the hard work and commitment of noble Nigerians to make our voice heard in a quest to create a better society. I personally feel extremely honored for having the opportunity to lead the NESG in this mission over the past 4 years. Our focus on education over the next 3 days is all about building a better society for all. This Next 20 is going to be a game changer, as we present an important platform to crystallize, to catalyze, and to amplify past efforts on education. Mr. Vice President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to the 20th Nigeria Economic Summit.